you please first introduce yourself for us, please?
My name is Juili Ward, and I'm a member of the European Parliament.
Thank you. You're, of course, aware of the death penalty for Mohammad Ali Taheri and how his life is at risk now in Iran, and how worried is all his students and supporters around the world. What's your opinion about the sentences like executions and pressures in Iran?
Well, I think generally the situation in Iran regarding political prisoners is very worrying. The country has not progressed on a number of fronts regarding human rights. The fact that it still has the death penalty at all, in my opinion, is shameful. I'm actually a member of an organisation called Parliamentarians for Global Action, and we work to try and eradicate the death penalty worldwide. So for me, death penalty for anything is a travesty, really, of humanity. I think in this particular case, it's very cruel. Mohammad Ali Taheri had already served his sentence, so this recent announcement that he will face the death penalty is particularly cruel. But he's not the only one. There is a pattern to this in Iran, and I think when we speak about individual cases, we have to remember that this is something which is actually systematic in the country. I want to speak about his case because it's urgent, but I have been speaking about the case of many Iranian prisoners for some time. Mr. Taheri is also dual national. He's also, I think, is he dual? He's not dual national. No. But he's a member of the human race. Yeah, I'm a member of the human race, and I think he was, as far as I can understand, he was a spiritual leader. So he has many students. He has many people who had listened to his teachings. He is a man of peace, and we need more of that in the world, really. So I suppose I feel I feel a sense of kinship with him because he's a peaceful he is a peaceful person, and in my country, in this country, and in Europe, we like to stand up for fundamental freedoms, for people to follow their own religion, their own faith, and many different faith groups come together, work together, stand together against atrocities. So it's very sad when something like this happens.
Yeah, of course. As an active European Parliament member, do you have any future plan to force Iran to stop these such sentences? And do you have any suggestion for us as supporters of Taheri?
Well, one of the things that we can do in the European Parliament is we can send letters which can be signed by many different parliamentarians. So I can initiate a letter about this case. We can try and speak about these things in the chamber, in the plenary debating chamber. We can send letters not just to the authorities in Iran, but we can also encourage the High Representative, Federica Mogherini, to take up the case. She has many meetings with the regime in Iran because of the Iran deal. Also now because there is trade, because the sanctions have been lifted. But a year ago we had a report about Iran, and we were still criticising its record on human rights. We were still criticising particularly its use of the death penalty. So I think we have to go back to the motions, the resolutions that were passed through our own parliament, and look at the text that was adopted by a majority and say, Iran is still not operating in the in the way that we as European countries with our values, we need to be doing business with people who share our values, and we need to see progress on a number of issues where human rights are being transgressed.
Thank you very much. As an active member, do you think to what degree this type of protest would help to lift the pressures on the religious and political prisoners in Iran, like Baha'is people, the Darwish, and the Christian converts?
Well, I think we're living in a very difficult world right now, and there's never been a more important time for everybody who cares about human rights to stand up for decency. I'm a Labour politician. I'm a socialist. I think the fact that we've got Mr. Trump in the White House, he's a danger to society, as far as I'm concerned. We have a lot of crazy leaders right now, and they're full of ego. I don't think they're operating with the best interests of their countries. I don't think they're operating in the best interests of equality. I don't think they're operating in the best interests of young people, and in good relations, good international relations. So all kind of protest right now is very, very important. I actually think it's the duty of an elected politician to also be a campaigner, not just to be somebody who will speak in a parliament or who will put forward reports or amendments or speak or in the debate or the committees. When our values are challenged, we have to be on the streets as well. We have to be on the streets with the people who are fighting for justice when lives are under threat. And I think that is particularly the case when we see regimes that are just trampling over human rights, and Iran is one of them.
Thank you very much for your presence to support us here today. Would you like to add anything at the end for us?
Well, I've been campaigning very hard as well for the British Iranian dual nationals, particularly Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe, whose case is utterly appalling. To be a young mother with a child, to go and visit your family, and then to be arrested and not told what you've been arrested for, to be separated from your family, for your child also to have her passport confiscated, for the whole family to be divided, to be split up, to be barred from seeing each other, for her to suffer in the way she's had to suffer in Evin prison, and not to be told, the whole secrecy surrounding the case, I think, has just been absolutely appalling. So I'm standing up for her wherever I can. She's I think maybe there's a difference if you're a human rights activist and you are a human rights defender. Maybe you know a little bit about the risks you might take. But if you are an ordinary mother with a child visiting your family, if you are a grandfather on business, as Kamal is, if you are just going about your business, not not being a forthright human rights campaigner or defender, but literally just trying to live your life, and suddenly you become caught in a terrible dark web of secrecy, of courts which are where people cannot come to see what is happening, where things aren't being reported. The Revolutionary Guards involved instead of ordinary courts. I think all these things just demonstrate the kind of autocratic regime that and fundamentalist regime that we're dealing with, and I just want to applaud everybody who campaigns in a very creative way, in a very compassionate way, in a way that demonstrates that these are people with families, with children, with sons, with daughters, with husbands, wives. You know, they're ordinary people going about their business, legitimate business, and they need to be released, and we need to speak up about their plight, always.
Thank you very much for your presence again. Hopefully we can make the world watch this and somehow we stop Iran. Thank you very much.
That's all right.